Alrighty, so today we're gonna look at the New England Revolution, and that I remember back, I think in March or April, around this time, where I did a video talking about the Revs and the Quakes and how both of these teams were the two remaining teams yet to get a win this season in MLS, and I talked about which team most likely is gonna get their first win. But I also talked about which team that looked like most likely is gonna be okay for the rest of the season and maybe turn their fortune around. Now, I mentioned that New England was the team to do so because I thought that they have the star power to do so. And no, not to mention when they do start to get some of their best player back from long term injury, that's what we saw last season because they were just so snake in because of injuries. Things are gonna go well for Caleb Porter team, right? Right? Yeah, things are definitely not going well for Caleb Porter team, and this is also on the back of how it seems like what we heard today. There is a rumor suggesting that not only there's a huge unrest in terms of this New England team, but there's a huge unrest in the locker room itself. There's definitely some disagreement that is going on, especially between Caleb Porter and his players. There's multiple players that have multiple confrontation with Caleb Porter, and that it feels like this is where maybe Caleb Porter time with the New England Revolution is starting to come to an end. I mean, I mentioned before, even in a video, talk about five head coaches that I thought could potentially most likely to get fired this season. Little do we know that I didn't think Gary Smith was going to be that, though I think I did put him in the top five list. But it seems like Caleb Porter might be the next one to do so because you know the old saying, when you lost the dressing room, or in this case lost the locker room, yeah, it's gonna be very, it won't take long before the chopping block is also going to happen. And you can maybe even argue that the chopping block probably should have happened because it seemed that there's also a report suggesting that the owners and the GM was supposed to meet with Caleb Porter in a meeting, and Caleb Porter didn't show up in that meeting. And I have a feeling if he did show up for that meeting, he probably know what that meeting is all about. He's probably going to get fired from this team. But so far, their record, yeah, it's been a miserable one. 2-1-9 is their record. They only have 7 points so far this season. That is by far the fewest that any team has had, and they're the only team to not have double-digit points total up to this point to the season, and they're also the only team to not have scored double-digit goals this season. They've only got 9 goals that scored this season, and they gave up 25 goals so far this year. Believe it or not, that is actually not the worst goal allow record so far, not only in MLS but in the Eastern Conference itself. Montreal actually has the worst goal allowed record with 31 goals conceded. But yeah, 25 is definitely not good whatsoever. But that being said, they do also have the worst goal differential with a minus 16 goal differential. And when you look at the top goal scored, well, so far it's pretty much just Carlos Hill and then a couple of players. He's have scored 4 goals this season, and yeah, it's been a frustrating year for Carlos Hill. He's not known for being a goal scorer, but it's almost like he kind of had to this year, picking up the slack, and that kind of also shows you on the assist chart where he's definitely not getting as much assists as what we see in previous season. If pretty much any but one assist that he has so far got this year. Then you have Thomas Shankalai, who had two goals this season. Thomas Shankalai was very good in the Concacaf Champions Cup, and he was also very good last season as well. For whatever reason, it has not shown up in league play this year, and it will be interesting to see whether if it will eventually show up in league play. Now, a guy that also have 2 goals is Giacomo Veroni. So this season we talk about Veroni. This is a make or break season for him. So far, it's been more of a break than rather him potentially stepping up on this team and really produce. I mean, I've said in the beginning of the season, I think a lot of Reps fans have said in the beginning of the season, this is really it for Roney. If he cannot stepped up, he could be out of the door in the summer transfer window. I have a feeling that could be the case this summer, and even then, who's gonna take him, because his value has really plummeted ever since he has joined this New England Revolution side. And then of course Nacho Hill, I actually didn't put it on the list here because that's how bad this Revs team is when it comes to scoring goals. but he have also scored only one goal so far this season. And in terms of the top assist leader, again, nobody on this team has more than 2 assists. So I name a couple of guys that is notable that has at least or have 1 assist. You got Boateng with 1 assist, Carlos Hill with 1 assist, Nacho Hill with 1 assist, Ian Harks with 1 assist, and Matt Polster with 1 assist. There are also 4 other players that has 1 assist because that pretty much equals how many goals that they've scored so far this season. Now, looking at the season so far for the Revs, well, it didn't start out badly for the Revs. I mean, they got a 1-0 road win against Independiente on the road. And while, yes, I know that doesn't sound impressive when you play against a Panamanian team, keep in mind, this is the same team that Toronto lost a couple of years ago by a score of 4-0 on the road. So the fact that the Revs are able to go on the road and get a gritty 1-0 win. That's definitely impressive for MLS team because MLS team has had their times where they struggle, even playing against Central American team. And then they return home and they lost 3-1 in this game. So this was a game where I remember Veroni got himself sent off in this game, and it didn't really help the Revs after that. I mean, they were pretty much behind the eight ball for a bit. They did tie the game in that one, but end up losing 3-1 because Christian Benteke decided to have his first hat trick of what would be one of 2 hat trick that he would have so far this season. And then they're back in CONCACAF Champions Cup play where it was an easy 3-0 win that they have against Independiente. Again, up to this point, so far they've been doing very well in terms of the competition, and at least early on, that was kind of the case where that meme where there's like the dog that is kind of with a lot of muscle and kind of flexing itself, and then on the other there's like a dog that is kind of small and just kind of whimper. That's kind of what New England is when it comes to their league form and also their CONCACAF Champions Cup form. While in CONCACAF Champions Cup they have been very strong, their league form was very, very, very poor. And that include them losing their home opener 1-0 against Toronto FC. I think it was wasn't it Bernadeschi the one that scores the winning goal for TFC late in this one? But going back into the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and this was a real test because Alajuelense, I mentioned they're definitely one of the better team in the Central America region, if not probably the best team in the Central America region. And they smacked them 4-0 was the result. It was such a big win for New England that they actually led to Alajuelense fire their head coach because of it. And I think if Alajuelense is still maybe keeping track of how New England is playing, I think there's a good reason why they fired their head coach, because when you lose to this team by 4 goals, yeah, things are definitely not going right. And also, by the way, keep in mind I did not include the goal tally in terms of the goals that the refs have scored. This is basically MLS play in terms of the goals and the chart. That is the top goal scorer and top assist list. So yes, while New England has scored more than 9 goals, if you include CONCACAF Champions Cup play, yeah. Besides that, they haven't really done very well in league play as itself. And in the next match, after that 4-0 win that they had against New England, it couldn't be the opposite in their next game against Atlanta. They lost 4-1 in that game against Atlanta United. But back in CONCACAF Champions Cup play, I mean, they had a strong showing on the road in a hostile environment against Alajuelense, getting a 1-1 draw in this one. But the very next game against Cincinnati, they actually had a 1-0 lead in this game against Cincinnati. But 2 quick goals for Cincinnati is the difference of the defending Supporter Shield team winning on the road. Then they got a 1-1 draw in this game against the Chicago Fire before heading into CONCACAF Champions Cup play, where this is probably the toughest task that they will have throughout this competition, to play against the giant of Mexican soccer known as Club America. That's how they did in that one. Yeah, they got absolutely destroyed in that one. 4-0 was the win that Club America had against New England. In fact, that game at Gillette Stadium, there was pretty much 95% Club America fans and maybe 5% New England fans, and probably some from their supporter group, because yeah, it was pretty clear that was a home game for Club America rather than a home game for New England. But they did finally get their first win of the season on April 6th when they got a 1-0 win against Charlotte. What's kind of interesting about that game is that Taylor Porter basically guaranteed that they would win this game, and that was definitely a bold decision by him to guarantee that. In fact, Dean Smith feel like that was kind of disrespectful about about how the opposition coach basically guaranteed that their team is going to win, and especially with how bad your season has been, not getting a single win so far this season and coming off of a 4-0 thrashing against Club America. Again, that is a very bold statement to make. And to be fair, to Caleb Porter, he backs that up with his team winning 1-0 and finally getting their first win of the season. But then going to Mexico City, there was only one conclusion. I mean, they were going to get smacked again by Club America. 5-2 is the result. Although I will say this, at least to New England's credit, at least they didn't get smacked as bad as what we saw Sporting KC did against Rayados a couple of years in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Remember how they got smacked 10-2 in two leg affairs where I think Sporting KC lost like 5-2 in the return leg, and then in the first leg they lost like 5-0 against Rayados. So at least New England has that to hang their hat on, the fact that at least they didn't suffer the worst aggregate score as what we've seen in the past couple of years that MLS team have suffered against Liga MX's opponent. But that being said, on the third team, going on the road to play against a struggling NYCFC team, yeah, they lost that one. They lost 2-0 in that one, and they follow that by losing 1-0 on the road against Toronto FC. So yeah, Toronto is definitely not New England's friend. They already only lose them twice so far this season, and both times by a 1-0 scoreline. And then in the Messi game, yeah, it didn't really kind of help the fact that Messi and his friends just completely run over New England in that one. It was a record attended crowd as well, but obviously a lot of that is because a lot of those people were there to pay to see Messi play and not to see New England play. And that, yeah, they definitely got themselves a treat. 4-1 win that Miami has over New England. Then the very next week, where they have a bit of a desperation derby against the Chicago Fire, because Chicago, another team that's not doing very well so far this season. Well, they did win that desperation derby. They won 1-0 in that one. That gets their second win, and maybe you start thinking they can build something up, right? Well, no, because the very next week they gave up 4 goals against the Red Bulls and lose 4-2 on the road. And then on the 18th, this is probably the worst performance that they've had this season at home, losing 3-0 against the Union, and not to mention they got themselves sent off. Or they were down to 10 men, and Ryan Spaulding got himself sent off in the 14th minute, and he was also part of the confrontation that Caleb Porter has with one of his players. I think another player that he has confrontation is Nick Lima, and how Nick Lima didn't shake Caleb Porter's hand when he came off the field in the 83rd minute, and Caleb Porter basically sounded off as saying that he's basically disrespecting him, and that, yeah, again, it just feels like there's definitely a locker room role right now between the players and the head coach. And again, usually when we get to this point where clearly there's a disagreement, and clearly when the players are not playing for their head coach and the head coach completely lost the locker room, there will not be surprised that a firing could happen. In fact, I won't even be surprised after I make this video that we're gonna hear the firing of Caleb Porter. Although I don't think that's gonna happen, because at the time of this recording it's already like what, 9 o'clock in New England, and usually we don't see like firing happen very late into the evening. Though it does happen at time. And yeah, again, I think that you got to say that unless if this team maybe have a miraculous turnaround in these next 5 games, as I'll talk about, it feels like Caleb Porter is a dead man walking right now with how bad things have gone for this team. So talk about their next 5 games. Yeah, it doesn't get any easier for them. They play NYCFC at home in this one. NYCFC has been red hot so far this in these last month, especially on the road, winning back-to-back games. Then they play against Nashville SC on the road. That's definitely a desperation derby, because Nashville also a team that is struggling. Though Nashville, of course, have already fired a head coach. So there could be a case that up to this point we could maybe be seeing 2 interim head coach facing off against each other if Caleb Porter doesn't last by the end of May. And then it gets tougher with them playing at home against the Red Bulls, that same team that smacked them 4-2 on the road, before they play at home against Vancouver on the 15th. And then they go on the road to play against Cincinnati. And did I also mention that the very next game after Cincinnati, they play the other Ohio team in the Columbus Crew? That game, I think, is at home. But yeah, to play 2 Ohio team to finish the month of June. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's going to get any better for this Revs team. And keep in mind, the thing about this team is that they're starting to get some of their key players back in this team. I mean, Dylan Barrero, a player that has just been so important to this team. He's now back on the pitch, but doesn't seem like he's making a big of an impact because the whole team seems like they're broken right now, and that this team seems like just as bad of a mess as what we saw last year. And at least last year they kind of had an excuse for it because the whole Bruce Arena situation really clouded the situation between the refs and also the off the field situation. But this is just simply just Caleb Porter coming in, and I knew that Caleb Porter maybe won't get instant impact to a team because we saw that doing his time with Columbus and doing his time with Portland that it takes a while for him to eventually get the team going and get the team back to being a championship caliber and eventually win MLS Cup like he did with the Timbers and the Crew. But during those time when he was with the Timbers and the Crew, I don't think in his first season doing those two jobs that he took that he's got off to this bad of a start that he has with the New England Revolution. I mean, right now this team is an absolute mess, and there's no doubt. Like I said, I think they have to let go of Caleb Porter. They have it's clear that this team is not playing for him. They're not really showing that performance. And I also won't be surprised if they do get an interim head coach coming in. If we once again get Clint Pay back into this team, which I don't know if he's still considered to be in the interim basis after last year we saw he was the interim basis for the latter part after Richie Williams got was let go on the interim basis because he was involved with the Bruce Arena situation. But yeah, it's clear that this team needs a change of voice, and they've already saw Nashville decide to do that, and that I think they'll definitely they do it as soon as possible. I wouldn't be surprised they might do it in the next game or even in these next coming days coming into this game between them and NYCFC because as I said, there's clearly some toxic environment in not only this team but also the locker room and the relation between the players and the head coach and unless that doesn't clean, this miserable run for the New England Revolution is going to continue. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Talking about the Revs and the disastrous start that they had this season. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And if you're a Revs fan, I mean, is there any hope that they can salvage this horrible start to the season? I mean, normally when you get off to a bad start to the season, if you can maybe get a spark and turn things around, you can get yourself back to playoff contention. But the Revs are just so far behind right now, and we're already pretty deep into the season. Where unless you do a Sporting KC level kind a turnaround like what we saw last season, I mean, there's a chance the Revs might not make the playoffs. And this is supposed to be a team that was supposed to consider to be a title contender in the beginning of the year and could end up to be the most disappointing team and equally right there along with TFC last season of the most disappointing team we have ever seen with all the hype surround that this team can definitely go over the get it over the hump and maybe be an MLS Cup contender in the Eastern Conference this year. But like I said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.